Alright, so today's topic is going to be, well, it's going to be something that I care about, but it's going to be relatively shorter because I know this video is coming out a little late. At least the time that I'm making it right now, it's going to be later than I usually do. At least for me, because I don't want to stay up too late. But either way, today's topic is going to be about Pokemon. Uh, I grew up playing Pokemon, and it was honestly I think probably one of the first games I played on the DS. I think I started with Pokemon Diamond, and from there basically played every game until like the most recent ones, which I'll go into more detail. But Pokemon Diamond, Pokemon Platinum, Soul Silver, and Heart Gold, I guess. But I had Soul Silver. These games were some of the best in the franchise, in my opinion. In terms of like the gameplay and the little things that they sprinkle in there, and the map, the music. The amount of times I've replayed those games um, on emulators and everything nowadays, because that's the best way to replay it without deleting everything that I have before. So those games are some of my favorite, but they're also some of the most brutal in terms of game mechanics. Like shiny hunting, I think is 1 in 8,000, like 81, 92, something like that. Whereas nowadays games are, babyfied, but it's much easier. You're better. Your chances are much better finding shinies. That's just one part. Um, I think like honestly, the challenge, the difficulty scale in those games is a really good difficulty. Like you you have to find ways to be smart and win instead of kind of just being overpowered, over leveled, which is a common problem that was found in the later games. So and specifically I'm talking about Cynthia and some of the Elite Four, honestly. Like I think Lucian and Sinnoh was pretty difficult because a lot of the stuff that you find in Sinnoh is not a great counter, but um, it's mostly Cynthia because her team is completely stacked. But the difficulty in those games is definitely, I think, at like the perfect like level where it's challenging, but at the same time not too challenging. That makes sense. Now we move on to Black and White 2. These games at the time, I think I was maybe 10 or something. So I didn't appreciate the complexity of these games. But these games, now looking back, watching videos, playing them again, they are also maybe the pinnacle of the franchise with the storytelling. Let's see what else. Storytelling, the gameplay mechanics is honestly revolutionary because they were transitioning to the 3DS at that time, but they decided to throw this out, and I think they kind of like used some new like camera mechanics. It's the moving models in the battles. That was great. Um, what else am I missing here? Um, I think the world building is honestly incredible. I mean, it takes place. I think the idea is that it takes place in New York. Um, so there's that, and yeah, the story is just really, really, really good in that game. I mean, I know I'm just kind of like repeating what everyone else says, but the game was not as appreciated when it came out as it is now. And I feel bad that we kind of all jumped on Game Freak. Well, I don't know if I did, but the whole community was jumping on Game Freak for releasing this game that wasn't that great, or at least what they thought wasn't great, and then turned out to be one of the better games in the series. So about that. Post game wise, let me mention quickly about the post game for most of these games. Diamond Platinum, not too much post game. I mean, the post game is weaker compared to Heart Gold Soul Silver, which of course it opens up Kanto, it opens up a lot of different things. And Black and White 2, the post game is also it's all right. It's not great, but I think I believe it's in Black and White. It opens up the second half of the map. And then in Black and White 2, I don't remember exactly. The one thing I do remember though and what they discontinued in the 3DS, which I will always be, kind of bitter, bittersweet about, is the legendary encounters. So, like, for example, Darkrai and Shaman. What happened to, go into an event? You go to the GameStop, right? You download the event and you get an item, and you have to. There's another story to it. What happened to that? They just stopped trying. That's the issue. That's a common issue that happened with a lot of the other games. So Darkrai Shaman, like I love these like small little events that just showed a little bit of the in-game lore. Um, with Gen 5, it was Victini and Keldeo and Meloetta. Those were, and I mean Genesect. I don't know if it was officially released. I think it was, but either way, same thing. Um, all these like gave a little bit of more insight into the lore of the game, and it made it more immersive, right? Whereas, and we'll move on to Gen 6 at this point, which is now into the 3DS. We have the event Pokemon where you download on the Wi-Fi, comes in, and you just pick it up. I mean, yeah, you get the Pokemon, it's cool, it's like a mythical, legendary, whatever it is, but it's boring. And I know that, they can't code in every single mythical Pokemon, but it would be nice to have a little bit of that. And for Gen 6, I don't even remember. I know they had Volcanion, which I never got, and Diancie. I think both of those were just, they just released them. You were able to just get them or download them, or you had to go to GameStop or something, but there's no in-game event for those, which is disappointing. But I did like Gen 6 a lot. I don't want to say that I didn't like it. It was also very good. I think the game mechanic with Mega Evolution was, it was revolutionary, and maybe from a competitive standpoint it was completely broken, and I'm pretty sure that's why in a lot of competitive matches, like the actual competitive matches, whatever it is, OU or Ubers or whatever it is, it was banned. So, but in casual play, it was very fun to kind of mess around and see which Mega Evolutions turned out the best. Like Mega Beedrill, who would have thought that that Pokemon would have gotten a Mega Evolution? And I don't think it's that good, but it's still fun to mess around with it. So Gen 6 X and Y map, um, the map design, the music, all super good. I think the new Pokemon that they added as well in X and Y is also very good. I really like the new evolution, the Sylveon. Um, Starters were all very nice, and I think the honestly, I really like the story in that game as well. You know, I don't know if it's a spoiler or not, but the fact that this one guy, I think I remember his name is AZ, super old guy that had the power of life, but sacrificed his own Pokemon or something. That was honestly very good. And yeah, cities are very well designed, especially Lumio City and Snowbell City. And the one thing in Snowbell City that I love, which is the Jubilife remix, which I mean that by itself just makes me love the game. Besides that, though, I mean X and Y, there are like decent amount of flaws to it. For one, roller skates are really annoying. I don't think I ever preferred using roller skates. It is a new feature and it's kind of like a testing feature, but I don't think I ever liked using roller skates, to be honest. There's always the bike or just running shoes. And second of all, they babied the game with the EXP, XP share, whatever. They babied the game with that, so they made the game basically super easy where everyone in your party gained XP. I mean, it's fine. It made the game just too easy, in my opinion. That's how I see it. But everything else was very good. Post game though, that's the only part it lacked. I'm sorry. I mean, in terms of the story aspect, which post game was a little bit weak. It had one, I think, story with the Looker in Lumia City, but that's about it. Oris, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, that those games were really good. I don't think there were too many flaws now that I can think about it with those games. Mega Evolution, EXP, sure, I mean same thing, but pretty faithful to the remake, and as well like the Delta episode. I mean, come on, that's I insane for a post game. One of the best things I've ever played, and yeah, I mean that's about it for that. Oh, the flying in with Latios, also amazing mechanic. Let's move on quickly to Gen 7, I think we're at, which is Sun and Moon. I mean, these games began to get a lot more criticism, I will admit. Where we have a lot of cinematics, they felt slow. The gameplay was virtually about the same. I mean, there were some changes, but ultimately, they add some new Pokemon, they make a new map in, I think it's based on Hawaii, and the story is interesting, but at the same time, like I said, a lot of cutscenes, cinematics, where it draws on. And I will say, this is one of the games that I haven't replayed as much. I did play once or twice, and that was about it. And it's mostly because of the slow pace, but I did enjoy. I mean, it wasn't a bad game. I will say that. I don't really have any major things glaring out at me. From there, that's where I kind of stopped playing Pokemon games because at the time I think they switched that's when they switched so they did Sun and Moon and then Ultra Sun and Moon, and then they switched from the 3DS to the Switch. And that's where I kind of, fell off because the Switch is a handheld console, but it also feels more it's just not the same feeling as a 3DS or DS. But I did play a few games. So one games I did not play Gen 9. I believe that's Sword and Shield. So I did not play that because, well, I did try playing it and it was extremely boring in my opinion. I could not get past, I think, the first gen. Not because it was difficult, but because I was bored. But I did get to play Let's Go Pikachu, which was fun for a little bit because, just Kanto, replaying Kanto, and mostly just shiny hunting. I'm a big fan of shiny hunting. But that's about it. I mean, Let's Go Pikachu. They've remade Kanto at least 4 or 5 times, I think, at that point. The next one, which this is where I was really disappointed, and you can't even blame Game Freak. I believe at this point it's the ILCA or whatever ILCA that took over this project, but it's Pokemon Diamond, Brilliant Diamond, and Shining Pearl, which ever since I've played Diamond and Pearl and Platinum, I've always wanted a remake of the game. When I saw Oris remake for Emerald and Ruby Sapphire, I was excited for a Gen 4 remake, and then they push out this product, which is complete garbage. The only thing that's going for me is the nostalgia. I mean, I love the game, the base game, and I love the fact that it's really faithful to the base game, but it's too faithful where there's no innovation. The character is still a chibi, which it's like a little cute chibi, but at the same time, like we wanted something different, something new, something fresh that you were expecting a remake, not just a graphic overhaul. That was the biggest flaw with me, like, and that was the kind of last straw for me because I saw what I believe to be a really great franchise that kept pushing out decent games and good games, really good games every year, kind of falter off because the gameplay got repetitive. I mean, you can only make so many Pokemon games where it's the same sort of script, right? Where you have eight, where you start off, you have the bad guys, you go through 8 gyms, you fight the Elite Four, you fight the champion, you fight the bad guys, that sort of thing, right? There's only so much you can do with that. Sun and Moon did switch that up a little bit, but generally, like the concept was about the same. And so from there on, I kind of just was lukewarm to any idea for Pokemon at all. Like I think they announced Scarlet and Violet at that time, and it was multiplayer. They had this new Gigantamax or whatever it was. Um, just it felt gimmicky to me at that point, and I don't know how it felt for other people, but I decided to stay away from that. Now the one game I did play And the one game I am excited for when it does come out is Pokemon Legend Arceus and the new one, the open world one, Pokemon I think Z or whatever, whatever it is, Legend of Z, uh, the one that's kind of based in Kalos or historical Kalos. So Legend Arceus, in my opinion, was probably their best game within this decade, so the 2020s. And the reason is that it's innovative. It's something new. It's something different. And I mean, the story is okay. It's kind of straightforward and not too interesting, but it's more about the world exploration, more about the fact that this is how Pokemon is actually supposed to kind of like it would be if it were real life, right? Like you would just see Pokemon in the wilderness, you can interact with different things in the world, you can do all this stuff. So I thought that game was very fun and very creative. Although, it was inspired by like the multiple open world games that had come before it, like Breath of the Wild, um, all these like Genshin Impact, I think. And yeah, that's kind of where I ended the Pokemon journey. Um, it hasn't been great, and especially the fact that you have to pay for DLC now. For Scarlet Violet, I think I've seen that, or I believe it was Sword and Shield. You have to pay for DLC, which I mean, come on. I get that that makes money, but it's really ridiculous. The fact that you're paying $60 for a game and then you have to pay DLC on top of that, and on top of that, on top of all of that, the game itself is not very good to begin with. You're pushing out a mediocre product, and you expect people to pay DLC for what? For the full Pokédex, for whatever else, an expansion to the world. It just it draws so far away from what Pokemon used to originally be, where everything would be stored into this one cartridge, right? And you would have these very small things. You search online on YouTube about the obscure Pokemon facts, and half of them, almost all of them, will be from the older generations where the game developers actually cared about making these small little details into the game. So, yeah, overall, I love Pokemon, and I will, continue to support it, like in terms of the merchandise and just being a fan. But the I've moved away from the games. I can't really support any of the new generation Pokemons just because it's not how I felt. And maybe I'm just living in the past. Maybe I'm just some person who hates change. But eh, I feel like my stance on how the old games are better than the newer games is has merit to it. The old games definitely had a lot more soul and effort placed into them. So yeah, now that I'm looking at how long I've been recording, I thought this was going to be a shorter video, but I kind of went on a lot of tangents there. So hopefully, if you got to this part, you really like Pokemon, or you really dislike my take, or you like my take. Um, but yeah, that's today's video. See you next time. Bye bye.